Their cousin was shot the previous night. The Z's they're catching is due to the stray bullets they're dodging because their zip code is a war zone. Our students are walking to school in the dark because there are no street lights in their neighborhood. Sometimes your school district is the only light that they'll ever see. Sometimes the love that flows from your heart is the only light and love that they ever experience. And I need you to understand, we can't really talk about education unless our children have food in their stomachs, unless their communities are safe, so they can walk the streets without fear, and unless their families and the structures in the community are solid enough so they can pass on the love that they're so deserving of. Because healthy schools and healthy neighborhoods are interconnected. You can't have one without the other. The saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child. But I need you to know the caveat. I need you to know the disclaimer to that. And the disclaimer is this: the child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to fill its warmth. We have to realize and recognize that we are our brother's keeper. We are our sister's protector. If the schools reject our kids, the community rejects our kids, the home rejects our kids, if the church rejects our kids and the streets accept our kids, guess where our kids are headed? To prison, the streets, or God forbid, a cemetery. Schools close, cemeteries and prisons are open. And when you grow up and you don't receive enough love, attention, care, focus, affection, and compassion, then you become ruthless and deracinated. You get caught up in the trauma-induced self-sabotage, impulsive living, violence, and the cycle of struggle continues. It continues to be pervasive. As educational leaders, what we're called to do is we're called to be change agents who assist in breaking the cycle. Sadly enough, in many of our schools and school districts, we have more metal detectors than mental health experts. Then we have resources in some of our schools. Education should not be an indoctrination for incarceration into a school to prison pipeline. And oftentimes there's a connection between suspensions and expulsions in prisons. Classrooms, not courtrooms, must be fostered through restorative practices such as relationship, respect, responsibility, repair, and reintegration through empathy, course correction, and remediation. When we think about education, we have to give consideration to the background conditions that oftentimes are affecting the children that we serve, which oftentimes impede their steps toward graduation, which is oftentimes due to the socioeconomic situation. Why don't precious poor kids get what well-to-do kids get? Such as resources that build their brilliance. Small classrooms with a student-to-teacher ratio that benefits individualized education and student achievement. I was at a school the other day, and their students were using the same books that I was using from decades ago when I was in high school.
Come on now.
That's a travesty. How is technology more up to date than the resources that we provide for our children in education? Hear me, whatever the well-to-do is getting, that's what the hood should be getting. Because we can make it a neighborhood. There shouldn't be a segregation in our methods of education, but education should lead to personal identification. What do we need? What we need is a stronger model of education that is based on evidence, centered on children, and built around achievement, excellence, and accountability for all. Here's what we often do. Too often we pass a child off to the next person. We wash our hands of them. And we say they're not our problem, that's somebody else's problem to deal with, until no one wants to deal with them at all. And so what do? We just lock them up rather than unlock their dreams. We give them a pill because it's easier to medicate than to educate. I can't get nobody talking to me today. It's easier to medicate than to manage and remediate. That's easier than doing a deep dive into the social emotional makeup of the multiple intelligences of our children. Do we assume responsibility by saying, listen, I don't know what their parents are doing or not doing, but for these next 8 hours, today, every day, I'm their parent, I'm their advisor, I'm their brother, I'm their sister, I'm their confidant, I'm their counselor. I'm their listening ear. I'm their advocate. As a board member, I'm going to bear their burdens through staunch advocacy and policy reform. Listen, we say these kids, we say those kids, but what if we changed our language to our kids? Yeah, our kids. Somebody say our kids. Why? Because anybody and anyone that you ascribe responsibility to, you exemplify TLC for. I ain't talking about the group I ain't talking about T-Boz, Left Eye, and Chili. I'm talking about tender love and care. And compassion and concern. Because you fortified a connection. Goes beyond race. It's about your place in their life. Because you desire to lead with love. What is it to have the title of school board member, but you have no function as a leader? Why is it? Because Dr. John Maxwell said everything rises and falls on leadership. And when you lead with love, you don't pass your children off to somebody else. When you lead with love, you don't wash your hands of Jamal and Javier and Julian and Jose and Johnny or Julie or Jennifer and refer to them as a lost cause. You don't defer your duty to the superintendent, to the next teacher, to the principal, to the assistant principal, to the secretary or the custodian. What do? You customize an action plan because you paid attention to the needs of our children. Their behavior may indicate that they're needy because their needs need to be met simply because you're needed. I need you to understand this, that you are a solution to a problem. You're a solution to exemplify love and care and consideration for the least, the last, the lost, the left out, the overlooked, the underserved, and the underrepresented. And what we must do, we must dig deep and ask ourselves, what am I doing to sharpen my skill set? What am I doing to maximize my mindset, heal my heart set, find serenity in my soul set, and build my tool set to be an asset in any environment? Why? Because if I don't do that, then I can't show my children how to do that. I can't water the seed for my harvest, for my district to grow and develop. Simply because the greatest indicator of student success is the belief that our students can succeed. By a show of hands, how many of you believe that our children can succeed? Come on, raise your hands as high as you believe our children can go. Come on, look around you at these bona fide breakthrough board members. What we need is, we need more than just rhetoric. Yeah. We need rigor. But more than anything, we need transformative relationships to educate the total child. Teaching that transforms begins with transformed mindsets and hearts to see beyond what we see to transform our reality. Just because our children are different doesn't mean they're deficient. No, they may not be a reader, but do you see him or her as a reader and a leader? They may not be on their best behavior, but I have an attitude of gratitude, and I will work with our children to shift their attitude to another altitude. Why? Because I have a vision to see in our brilliant children what they may not see in themselves. By the time our children reach the age of 18, they have already spent at least 10,000 hours playing a video game. But here's the question for you today. In that 10,000 hour span of time, who taught them how to create a video game? Come on now. Who taught them that social media is more than just a toy, but it can be used as a tool to learn and to build an online business, to create software, to develop coding for computers? Times have changed, but our archaic methods of education remain the same. We're in the IJS, BFF, LMDO, TTYL generation. Some of y'all were typing that today. The use of technology must be combined with an understanding of how our students learn, how skills and competencies are developed, how knowledge is represented through different media, and how learners use different senses of learning as we employ their multiple intelligences. It is the one and only Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. who said intelligence plus character, that is the true goal of education. And there's a difference between school and education. School is an institutional matrix. Oftentimes the institution breeds indoctrination. My teachers couldn't reach me, and my mama couldn't beat me hard enough to match the pain of my pop not seeing me. So with that disdain in my membrane, got on my pimp game, blanked the world, my defense came. Words from a rhetorical genius named Sean Carter. better known as Beyonce's husband. You know him as Jay-Z. I know we want our children to speak proper English. We want them to use the right adjective, make their subject and verb agree. We want them to learn Spanish and French and Mandarin. But do you speak their language? You need to have an understanding of how they communicate in code. When you learn their language, it gives you empathy for their agony. It gives you a view into their complicated analysis of the crisis that they are dealing with. They're telling us explicitly in song the source of their suffering and the hardship that hurts their heart. Now, I know you don't like the language that they use. But what's more abhorrent, what's more obscene? The language they use or the lifestyle that they live because of the conditions that they confront. If you were in their shoes, I'm sure you'd be cussing too. Some of y'all cuss ain't even got obscene conditions. I was eavesdropping, I heard a few conversations. I heard you on the plane, can I make it plain? So when I learn the language, what I'm trying to tell you is to get in tune with the young people that you ostensibly serve. Understand your target population and provide opportunities for them to engage with what they know and provide nuanced resources for them to grow. Understand what motivates our children and moves them. Even if you learned a few rap lyrics along the way, that'd be good as a school board member. Roll through a couple lines on them. They get lines so quick. Even if you kick some old school rap, they know yo. It's okay, hit them with, I said a hip, hop, the hippie to the hip hop, and you don't stop. Come on, somebody know it. The rocket to the bang bang boogie, say up jump the boogie to the rhythm of the boogie to beat. I got somebody in here. I knew you knew some hip hop. Finding innovative ways to reimagine education through the use of hip hop as text, as theory, philosophy, and practice in the pursuit of emancipatory schooling and how it connects to STEM, literacy, and school leadership. We want our children to increase their competencies and their comprehension, but how are we moving with intention to give attention to their pain points? Do we have a pulse on their pain to recognize the signs when they're suffering in silence? Hear me, when you begin to understand the circumstance, the plight, the promise, and the predicament, the condition in which our young people are struggling, when you listen to the culture and their music and their rhythm, and you listen to the hurt, the pain, and the agony, the hopelessness, and the hopefulness in these urban schools, because these schools are often war zones for many of our young black and brown, Native American, Asian, Arab, and young white kids. Poor white kids, think about what that means. What are the pain points of the students that you serve? Have you identified them? Are you ignoring them? What are you doing to address the pain points and remediate challenges by building relationships that meet needs across the board as a school board member? It is the great NHL Hall of Famer Wayne Gretzky said the thing that made me unique is that people skated to where the puck was. I skated to where the puck was going to be. What we must do is we must think outside the box by looking at the academic landscape and see where it's going, and we have to be there. We have to beat it there before it even gets there. It's going to take us thinking critically. It's going to take us with an innovative mindset in order to do that. Why? Because if we keep doing what we've always done, we'll keep getting what we've always received. We'll keep getting what we've always had. We'll continue to be stuck like Chuck in a pickup truck. Come on, man. I got news for you. What got us here won't get us to where we want to go, and what got us here won't keep us where we are right now. The times are changing. Why aren't we changing with the times? Just because the method changed doesn't mean our messages have to change. Years ago, we heard the statement, no child left behind, but look at how many children have been left behind. Now more than ever before, in a post-pandemic world, and not only are our children left behind, but the education system is further behind. As a consequence, if we don't evolve, we won't be involved. I need you to understand this. Education is begging for innovation. We need innovation in how we deliver and teach, in how we support learners, in how we prepare our instructors, and above all, in how we use technology for teaching. For this to happen, we've got to take a holistic approach. We have to reward innovation in teaching, building it into program planning and properly resourcing it if our academic institutions And school districts are not to just going to survive, but if they're going to thrive in the second half of the 21st century. Hear me, innovation doesn't just happen. We have to challenge ourselves to look at something very familiar that exists in one form and see new possibilities and new opportunities. Innovation without proper preparation, strategic direction, and mindful intention can be as dangerous as risk aversion. According to Dr. Jawanza Kanjufu, the education of our children is a matter of life and death. If our black boys cannot read, then jails are waiting for them. If our black children cannot read, then opportunities for employment will not be available for them. If our black boys cannot read, they will not be able to participate in civil discourse. If our black boys cannot read, then when they become parents, they will not teach their children how to read, and the cycle of struggle will continue. Something's got to change, because I'm tired of going to more funerals than I am graduations. Something's got to change. I'm tired of it. Got to be sick and tired of being sick and tired, as Fannie Lou Hamer said. Something has to change when our boys are reading below grade level. Something has to change when our girls believe that their value is only in their body, but not their mentality. Something has to change when parents are more in attendance for athletics than academics. The something that has to change begins in our choice to create change. The something that has to change begins with us. Is there not a cause when the schools are closed but the prisons open? Is there not a cause when incarceration is big business and education seems to be going out of business? We have to affirm to our young people, let them know, you're not no young thug, you're a young scholar.
Come on now.
You're not a stereotype, you're a prototype. You're not a pariah and a predator, you're a provider and a protector. You will not do 4 years in a correctional facility. You will do 4 years in a college or a university. Not 4 years in a prison house, but you can do 4 years at Spelman and Morehouse. And here's the thing, you may not go to college, but you can still pick up a trade. You can go to trade school because a plumber is just as important as a professor. An electrician is just as important as an educator. And I don't care how tough our youth portray to act, all of our students have a fragile do not drop label on their lives. And they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Caring and committed education leaders make deposits so our students can make withdrawals for the rest of their lives. It takes emotional intelligence. It takes relational intelligence to create positive impact. And what I challenge you to do, I challenge you to reframe your thinking from this approach mentioned by Dr. Jabari Mahiri, who was an author and Berkeley School educational professor. Dr. Mahiri said that our young people are not failing to engage with books, but rather the books we teach in schools are failing to engage our young people. What we must do is we must ask questions such as, who are our students? How do their histories and deep sociology shape who they seek to be and how they read? Simply because I make up only 2% of black male educators in America. Most of our students will never see anybody who looks like me in the classroom. A belief in student success is not a matter of ethnicity, it's a matter of expectations. And when we believe that our students can succeed, it encourages them to believe that they too can succeed. What we gotta do is we gotta get rid of the cultural cataracts. We have to put on a learning lens so that we can see the value in our students, that they're often blind to themselves. What lens do you see our children through in the classroom? Simply because words matter. We have to counter the deficit language and conversation that has been placed upon our youth with words like underperforming, disadvantaged, troubled, lacking, and at risk. How many times do you say that our youth at risk?
Come on now, when they're wounded.
Come on, I need you to keep it 100 with yourself. I need you to really stand on business with it. How many times do you hear that our youth are at risk? All of these negative adjectives and troubling terminology keeps us deficit-minded. Surprisingly, you rarely have ever hear that our youth are at promise. Deficit-based intelligence, deficit-based language will keep our children at a low level, but asset-based framing language will lift our children to new heights, to aspire higher. So I ask you again, what lens do you see our children through in your district? As an asset or a liability? An asset-based approach provides appropriate engagement with our youth. And when you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at change. Life looks blurry when you aren't exposed to fruitful opportunities. Young people need development and exposure, and we must show them a world beyond athletics and entertainment. How do we use the lens of literacy to reflect the life that they live and the life that they desire to have? It is John Taylor Gatto. John Taylor Gatto was a five-time Teacher of the Year in the state of New York, and he wrote a book entitled Weapons of Mass Instruction. He said he became totally disillusioned that his job as a school teacher was not to teach math, but to teach school. He said the purpose of many schools is to manufacture employees, not CEOs.
Come on now.
Many schools are intent on championing memorization over innovation, rather than reimagining and rethinking education to what it can be, what it should be, and even what it isn't in America. Simply because the primary goal of real education is not to just deliver facts, but to give students the truths that will allow them to take responsibility for their life. And as a school board member, I know you want to meet AYP, I know you want to develop your district, I know you want to meet the budgetary standards. Well, there are 4 necessities that must be inculcated in your schools. There are 4 E's that will help our students earn A's and B's. One is environment. It's essential that we develop a culture and a classroom climate that promotes literacy and leadership for young learners using culturally relevant materials. What is the state of the classroom in the school district environment? Because our children are coming from a diversity of environments where they don't always receive love. They don't always receive affection. They don't always receive attention. This is what we said. What goes on in this house stays in this house. That's a lie. Because what goes on in this house, much less this classroom, much less this district, oftentimes bleeds into other environments, into one's self-esteem, into one's self-identity. Dr. Sigmund Freud said we are in adulthood what we have experienced in childhood. It is Dr. Georgia Groy in her book, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, who said we carry in our DNA the trials, the trauma, the triggers, and the abscess from our ancestors that we internalize and we pass it down from generation to generation. Hurting people hurt people, but only healed people will heal people. And when you're not healed, you'll bleed on people who didn't cut you. We have to create a healed and loving environment for our children to be successful. We also need engagement. As school leaders, we must pay attention to what motivates and engages students to learn. We have to look at what they're gifted at. We have to fund it and engage them in that, whether it be art, whether it be science, whether it be math, whether it be music and technology, engineering and architectural design. What we have to do is we have to engage diverse learners with different methods of teaching and thinking, from the Socratic method to social emotional learners, to think, pair, share, different activities that activate the minds of young learners and cultivate them to be leaders. We got to have expectations, because the greatest indicator of student success is belief that our children can succeed. How many, by a show of hands, how many of us, again, want our children to be successful? What we must believe that Jose and Jamal can learn just as well as John. Keisha can learn just as well as Katie. We must believe that students can succeed with a spirit of success that becomes infectious in our school districts, in our classrooms, by incorporating the multiple intelligences and learning modalities of our students. We got to have encouragement, because our empowerment and our enrichment of students holistically must be the foundation for innovation and instruction. What do we have to do? We have to affirm and speak life into our children. We got to tell them that they're brilliant, that they're bright, they're blessed, they're beautiful. Dr. Cornel West said, you can't lead the people if you won't love the people. You can't save the people if you won't serve the people. And our young people are looking for authenticity. They're looking for honesty. They're looking for advocacy. They're looking for integrity and connectivity. They just want to know, do you notice me? Will you speak a word to me of encouragement? I know we know how to discipline, but do we have a receptive ear to listen? And as leaders, what we have to do, we have to ask the question, why, more often. Not just what, not just how, not just when, not just where, but why. Simply because for many of our youth today, they're living in a generation where loyalty is just a tattoo. Love is just a quote. And lying is the new truth. For many of them, life is a tough teacher, simply because they've been given a test before the lesson. No father in the home, family members incarcerated, raising themselves. Many times we don't even realize that they didn't eat dinner last night. They didn't have breakfast this morning. Over the weekend, their sister died. Their cousin was shot down in a rage of violence. Look at our classrooms, our culture, and our communities in crisis. Which begs the question, what is the value of black life in America? School system would say maybe $7,500 per pupil expenditure, but the prison system would say $35,000. Is its value in these incarceration nation as the world's prison population housing 95%? It's either education or incarceration. And when will we get upset enough to disrupt the preschool to prison pipeline? It is Sir Isaac Newton who said, mathematician, astronomer, and physicist, said you can see a lot farther by standing on the shoulders of giants. And what I am today as I head to my seat, I am a third-generation college graduate today because I'm standing on the shoulders of my grandfather, Harry Smith Jr., who decided to persevere through insurmountable odds and trials that he went through. Being born in 1923 with a heart murmur, raised by a single mother, working in the fields of Ferris, Texas, with a population of less than 3,000 people. He was the eldest sibling and had to provide for the family, so much so that he didn't enroll in school until the age of 12. Of course, he was teased. He was the biggest in his class, but he had the biggest heart to persevere. And it took him all the way to Texas College to earn a bachelor's degree in education and a master's in education from Michigan State University, serving as a teacher in Jackson Public Schools for close to 30 years. It was my grandfather's no quit, by any means necessary, dedication to his family, his faith, and as a teacher, to transform lives, which inspired me to be an educator and a mentor. Yes, I matriculated through the higher echelon of academia. I know how to be intoxicated with the exuberance of my intellectual verbosity, but I didn't forget where I came from. You see my suit, but there are a lot of scars under here. And I've learned sometimes life lessons through tough life lessons, such as me enrolling in the School of Hard Knocks. I had to graduate from the University of Adversity, simply because life was my greatest teacher. The struggle that I went through was my greatest teacher. And for a quick moment, I want you to close your eyes and imagine someone who knew that you were fighting for your life walked up to you one day and said these words, "I thought you died." Shocking, right? Disturbing and totally insensitive. So much so that you popped open your eyes. Well, those are the exact same words that a guy said to me some years ago. And listen, y'all, I was furious. I was so angry. I was getting ready to have a Will Smith, Chris Rock moment. And I wasn't going to be Chris. He was going to get these hands. I ain't talking about praying. We were in Detroit. And so I expected him to at least say, "What up, though?" I didn't even get that. His words produced the same pain in my chest when I was struggling to breathe as a teenager, ultimately being diagnosed with NHL. I thought it stood for National Hockey League. I said, I'm getting ready to be the youngest owner of a National Hockey League team, but it stood for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. That's right, stage 4 cancer. Yes, cancer made me cry, but it didn't make me quit. Listen, if we were watching the movie The Color Purple on the screen in here, I tell you, just like Sophia, all my life, I had to fight. Do I got some fighters in here? You fought through the storm, you fought through the rain, you fought through the trials and the pain. Look around you, you're not the only one. Open your eyes to what our young people are struggling to fight through on a daily basis. I don't want you to close your eyes to the reality of the pandemic of illiteracy affecting black boys in America, because behind every fact is a face, behind every statistic is a story, and only 10% of black boys in the 8th grade are proficient in reading. 50 million Americans cannot read past the 4th grade level, with the group adversely affected the most being African American males. There's an interconnection between illiteracy and incarceration, as Dr. Jawanza Kanjufu conveys in his books, that prisons are built based on 2nd and 3rd grade reading scores. When reading scores are at an all-time low, school board members like you must ensure that reading specialists are staffed in our schools at an all-time high. What a detriment is it to the literacy development of our children when we cut reading specialists out of the budget? What does that communicate? How can our children specialize in that which we don't provide specialists for? And as you oversee the education of our children, of our students in the community, don't overlook the importance of literacy and equity. Literacy development is not a liability, it's an asset to our schools, our neighborhoods, and our communities. We've seen or dealt with kids like this in our school, and I was probably one of them. My favorite 2 classes in school were gym and lunch, and my grades were indicative of that. Ultimately became a high school teacher, make that make sense. But in my classroom, whenever it was time to drop everything and read, almost every boy's head dropped on the desk as their book became the most comfortable pillow. So I thought to myself, why do boys close their eyes when they open books? And I discovered that many educators and school districts do not provide culturally relevant reading material to where our children see themselves reflected in the books that they read. Walter D. Myers said that books transmit values. If I'm not in the book, what does that say about my value? So it's easy to close my eyes if the book doesn't speak to my value, my community, and my identity. It's easy to close my eyes if the book doesn't connect to who I am, and where I want to be, my plight, my promise, and my purpose. This is why I developed the mentoring and literacy program, Boys to Books, designed to empower young males through literacy, leadership, and life skills enrichment. Essentially, readers are leaders. There are a plethora of mentoring programs, but mentoring without literacy enrichment is more of a liability than an asset. Literacy is not only about reading words, it's about relating to the world around you. All of us, what we must do is work together to change the narrative, to shift our classrooms, our culture, and our communities in crisis, so our young men won't go to jail, but Cornell and Yale. Not prison, but Princeton. Not 4 years in a prison house, but 4 years at Spelman and Morehouse. Not 4 years in a correctional facility, but 4 years at a college or a university. We are not stereotypes, we are prototypes. We are not pariahs and predators, we are providers and protectors. No, we are not thugs, we are scholars. We are not liabilities, but assets to our communities, our schools, and our universities. Essentially, we are our brother's keeper and our sister's protector. Frederick Douglass said, if we build strong children, we won't have to repair broken adults. I like to say, if we build strong boys and girls, we won't have to repair broken men and women. And oftentimes, our children have been broken by broken homes, dilapidated schools, and neglected neighborhoods. The power of mentoring provides an opportunity for me to empower our boys while speaking to the boy in me who was searching for value and validation, being raised by a single mother without a father. And the question that our young people are asking is, how do I play a role if I wasn't given a script? How do I become a man if I didn't see one, much less interact with one? Yes, I battled stage 4 cancer, but by the grace of God, I was able to find the can in cancer. As 2024 marks 24 years of me being cancer-free. And not only write 16 books, but show our boys their value in books. We must express to our young people that is not where you start in life. It's what you do with life that determines where you end up in life. Saying goes that boys will be boys. Yes, until someone teaches them to reach within to be more. I sincerely believe that service is the rent we pay for the space that we occupy. The words that we say to our young people, the words that our children read can be a catalyst to change their world. And so today we must imbibe the spirit of a fighter and ingratiate that into the minds of our children, that no dream is unreachable, no vision is unachievable, no goal is unattainable. See impossible as I'm possible. Delete the letter T off the word can't to turn into what you can do. Our diversity is not adversity. It's the greatest opportunity for unity. This is our time. We can no longer be segmented and divided. We must be united. Simply because you don't only go as far as your dream, you go as far as your team. An NSBA team, Cube team, our teamwork will make the dream work. And so as I stand before you today, I could also stand in front of that guy who said those same words to me. I thought you died. And I can look at him and tell him, you thought wrong. Because as you can clearly see, I didn't die, I multiplied. Whatever you do, NSBA, whatever you do, Cube, multiply your gifts. Multiply your purpose, multiply your vision, multiply your school district, multiply your community, multiply and bring unity. And just like NSBA, which stands for National School Boards Association, we must nurture, strengthen, build, and affirm our children as well as ourselves in order to achieve something greater than ourselves. God bless you. Thank you.